This is Sprat Check, and we're recording this April 15th, tax day in the U.S., 2021. And again, we need to timestamp it because we're going to talk about some stuff that I don't really hear other people talking about. Maybe they are, but I might be missing it. So supposedly, we had these great public health scientists and advocates who did all these great things for humanity by locking us down and enforcing mask wearing. In other words, if you want to get food, at least in where I live, from a store, you are required to put a mask on to go in the store to get the food. So this is their great public health contribution. So I'm going to show a short video. This originally came in 2017, pre-COVID, and I want to point out, and we should all point this out every day of the week to whoever we talk to, that there was science and medicine before COVID, and then there was science and medicine after COVID, and they bear no relation to each other. Complete break in the multi-millennial history of health and science. All kinds of lunacy suddenly became science based on, we all know fraud. But that is one of the big issues here. Will we recover? Will we get back to what science and medicine and public health were before this monstrous fraud? But anyway, here's some information from a researcher who discovered something extraordinary. The most important thing for health, not diet, not exercise, not positive thinking, not even a close, family. Here's what she discovered was the absolute most important contributor to a healthy, long life.
Something that surprised me, something that's called social integration. This means how much you interact with people as you move through your day. How many people do you talk to? And these mean both your weak and your strong bonds. So not just the people you're really close to who mean a lot to you, but do you talk to the guy who every day makes you your coffee? Do you talk to the postman? Do you talk to the woman who walks by your house every day with her dog? Do you play bridge or poker or have a book club? Those interactions are one of the strongest predictors of how long you live. Now, this leads me to the next question. If we now spend more time online than on any other activity, including sleeping, we're now up to 11 hours a day, 1 hour more than last year, by the way. Does it make a difference? Why distinguish between interacting in person and interacting via social media? Is it the same thing as being there if you're in contact constantly with your kids through text, for example? Well, the short answer to the question is no, it's not the same thing. Face-to-face contact releases a whole cascade of neurotransmitters. And like a vaccine, they protect you now in the present and well into the future. So simply making eye contact with somebody, shaking hands, giving somebody a high five is enough to release oxytocin, which increases your level of trust, and it lowers your cortisol levels. So it lowers your stress. And dopamine is generated, which gives us a little high, and it kills pain. It's like a naturally produced morphine. Now, all of this passes under our conscious radar, which is why we conflate online activity with the real thing. But we do have evidence now, fresh evidence, that there is a difference. So let's look at some of the neuroscience. Elizabeth Redkay, a neuroscientist at the University of Maryland, tried to map the difference between what goes on in our brains when we interact in person versus when we're watching something that's static. And what she did is she compared the brain function of two groups of people. Those interacting live with her or with one of her research associates in a dynamic conversation. And she compared that to the brain activity of people who were watching her talk about the same subject, but in a canned video, like on YouTube. So, and by the way, if you want to know how she fit two people in an MRI scanner at the same time, talk to me later. So, what's the difference? This is your brain on real social interaction. What you're seeing is the difference in brain activity between interacting in person and taking in static content. In orange, you see the brain areas that are associated with attention, social intelligence, that means anticipating what somebody else is thinking and feeling and planning, and emotional reward. And these areas become much more engaged when we're interacting with a live partner.
All right, well, it's pretty clear. Normal social interaction, face-to-face contact, that means without masks, is the most important contributor to human health. It trumps everything. It's more important than any other factor. And this has been known for a while. There have been many studies besides the ones that this lady has dug up. I know there's a famous study of this industrial town in Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania. I wish I could think of the name. And, the people have a terrible diet and they have terrible lifestyle and they smoke and they do all these terrible things and they have incredible longevity. Why? It is a very congenial town. It's made up primarily of Italians and Italian immigrant families, and they just have a really good, normal, natural, social scene there, which involves a lot of pleasant, positive interaction with lots and lots of people. And that overcame the bad diet, the smoking, the no exercise, so, all the other things that supposedly were supposed to kill them. So what did the great public health geniuses do when we were supposedly facing a deadly virus? They removed the absolutely most essential immune building factor from human life, and that is natural daily social interaction of all kind with people you're close to, people you barely know, people you at the post office, people at the supermarket. Those little interactions are very, very important to health, and our public health geniuses did their best to destroy that aspect of public health. So now I want to go to the next one. Carbon dioxide. This comes from a fascinating book called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor. It just came out. And truly one of the most important things you can do for your health is to learn how to breathe. And I know it's a big topic, but that's why he wrote the book. And it's a book that I can endorse as a student of these subjects for a long time. And they discovered something really interesting. There is a structure in your brain called the amygdala. The amygdala. And it was thought for a long time to be the fear center of the body, and in fact, it is. When the amygdala lights up, you feel afraid. But they have discovered something relatively recently, and this should have been known to all the great public health geniuses, and you're going to be shocked at what it is. And here's how they discovered the other thing that generates fear, besides your amygdala lighting up. So they had a subject who they called SM for her privacy. And this human being had a completely dysfunctional amygdala. Didn't work. So she never felt fear of any kind for any reason, to the point of ludicrousness, which is it's described in the book. But basically just common sense things that the average person would know to be afraid of. She just did not experience fear. So it appeared that the amygdala, by not functioning, was cutting her off from fear. And by the way, it's not good to not have fear. Fear is a protective device. Not when it's overblown, but day to day, it's good to have fear. Or have the ability to experience fear so that you can moderate your behavior. So anyway, she had none of that. So she obviously got herself into all kinds of problems. So they did a test with her, and it basically involved adding carbon dioxide to her inhaler mask. Okay, so they put a inhaler mask over her face. And it contained just a few lungfuls of 35% carbon dioxide, and the rest was room air. And nothing damaging about that. Wouldn't hurt her. Wouldn't hurt anybody. And here's the punchline. That minor introduction of excess carbon dioxide lit up the brain of this person who otherwise had a completely dysfunctional amygdala. This person never experienced fear of any kind. And just increasing the carbon dioxide mask, here's the answer. Right away, her droopy eyes grew wider. Her shoulder muscles tensed. Her breathing became labored. She grabbed at the desk. "Help me," she yelled through the mouthpiece. She lifted her arms and waved as if she were drowning. I can't breathe." A researcher yanked the mask off, but it didn't help. SM jerked wildly and gasped. A minute or so later, she dropped her arms and returned to breathing slowly and normally. So a single puff of carbon dioxide, not snakes, not horror movies, not thunderstorms, none of which frightened her. By the way, these researchers did everything possible to frighten and or disgust her, and nothing worked. So for the first time in 30 years, she felt full-fledged panic. Now, her amygdala, they point out, did not grow back or suddenly function. All it took was what they call this dormant switch had been flipped. And this person who otherwise was blithely went through the world without a fear in the world refused to repeat the experiment. And they did the same thing with a set of twins who both were born without amygdalas. And in both cases, they experienced debilitating anxiety, panic, and crushing fear. So it is not just the amygdala that causes fear. It is your oxygen, carbon dioxide balance. And what did they do to us? They told the whole population to put on masks, which of course increases the carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. And that's not debatable. You will have more carbon dioxide in your bloodstream if you wear a mask. So taking this full circle, the great public health servants, Tony Fauci, and all the moron idiots who supported him were basically doing two of the most potent things you could do to undermine human health. A, disrupt natural everyday interactions between human beings, and two, up the carbon dioxide level in people's blood. So I don't know if this will help persuade any of your friends, neighbors, family who still don't get it, but if you had any doubts, I think this just adds to the clarity of the situation. We have been run and ruled by psychopaths who are either massively incompetent or massively demented, or both. And they did the exact wrong thing you would do if you wanted to build up people's immunity. And of course, being in a constant fear state is going to wear out your immunity. So they created a system in which people were cut off from church, cut off from music, cut off from just going out and sitting in the cafe and just seeing people. Those interactions are important, very important too. So they created a world in which the two most important fundamentals for health and immunity, one, everyday natural social interaction with a wide variety of people in a normal way, and two, a normal oxygen carbon dioxide balance. They deliberately and with malice aforethought disrupted both of those things. So that's the news, and I haven't heard anybody else talk about these very simple things. And this is not deep, dark science. It's, I got it from a book that's a New York Times bestseller, and I got it from TED. So it wasn't, no extensive research needed. But I don't know anybody else that's talking about this. So if you're a supporter of Brass Check, thank you very much. You've paid for what you just got today. If you're not a supporter, I don't know, where are you getting stuff like this? Thanks to everybody that's supporting.